Should you become a truck driver in 2021? In this video, we're going to talk about some pros and cons of choosing to become a heavy or light truck driver. We're going to go over compensation, the jobs market, how there's actually a little bit of a shortage of truck drivers right now. We're also going to go over how deadly this particular occupation is. A certain number of people actually died last year on the road working as a truck driver. But first, what is the difference between a light and heavy truck driver, and what do truck drivers usually do? Truck drivers transport goods from one location to another. Most people break truck drivers into two different categories. There's the heavy and tractor trailer truck drivers on one end, where the total weight exceeds 26,000 pounds. Heavy truck drivers deliver goods over inner city routes that sometimes span several states. They can drive extremely long distances. Meanwhile, light truck drivers are a little bit different. Light truck drivers pick up, transport, and drop off packages and small shipments within a local region or urban area. They drive trucks that weigh less than 26,000 pounds, and this is including passengers and cargo. Often they are transporting merchandise from a distribution center to businesses and households. The requirements to become a light and heavy truck driver are a little bit different. To actually drive a semi or some other heavy truck, you actually do have to have a CDL license. CDL is also known as a commercial driver's license, and to get this, you typically have to attend some kind of professional driving school. Meanwhile, light truck drivers do not actually have to have a commercial driver's license in order to be employed. Usually their training just involves a 1 month on the job training. Often the requirement is just 1 month on the job training plus, a driver's license. So college is definitely not required to become a truck driver. In fact, 1 out of every 5 truck drivers hasn't actually finished high school. The majority have though. About 75% of light truck drivers and 56% of heavy have finished high school. And some have some college and a couple others have some kind of certificate after high school. So the barrier to entry to becoming a light or heavy truck driver is relatively low. It doesn't require lots of student loan debt. You can pretty much begin working within a year. But before we get into the salary and job market numbers, we're going to get into one pretty big con for truck drivers, and that is the fatality rate. A lot of truck drivers die every single year working on the road. In 2019, there was 1,005 truck driver fatalities. And this is more than any other occupation. The next closest would be farmers and ranchers. About 238 farmers and ranchers died in 2019 on the job. So over 1,000 truck drivers die every single year on the road. And this is just because driving is dangerous. In fact, according to the National Highway Transport Safety Administration, 38,680 people died in motor vehicle crashes in 2020. And this is during the pandemic. Lots of people die on the road every single year. So that is definitely one con you should be aware of before becoming a truck driver. Next up, what is the compensation like? How are truck drivers compensated? According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2020, the average base salary, and this is just assuming 40-hour work weeks, for a heavy truck driver was $48,710. For a light truck driver, it was $41,050. This is more than ambulance drivers, but a lot of aviation-related occupations like becoming a commercial pilot or airline pilot tend to pay quite a bit more than trying to become a light or heavy truck driver. But there is some good news for truck drivers. There's actually a shortage going on right now, and that's actually driving up the wages of truck drivers. And we can actually see this in the government's data. In the year 2000, the average base salary for a heavy truck driver was around $33,000, for a light truck around $25,000. By 2020, for heavy truck drivers, it rose to around $49,000, and for light truck drivers, around $41,000. But if you look at the wage growth between 2019 and 2020, you can actually see wages picking up for light and heavy truck drivers. And keep in mind, this is an average national base salary. In fact, the government found that the highest paying state for both light and heavy truck drivers is the last frontier state, the state of Alaska. For light truck drivers, the average base salary in Alaska is around $51,000 per year. And for heavy truck drivers, it is around $60,000 base per year. And keep in mind, these are base salaries assuming 40 hours a week. A lot of truck drivers work a lot more than 40 hours a week, and they get paid overtime, or they're on some kind of contract where they own the truck and they get paid per mile. That's really common in the industry. And that leads us to another advantage that truck drivers have over some other occupations. There's actually quite a few light and heavy truck drivers that are self-employed. In fact, the government found last year that about 8% of light truck drivers were self-employed and about 7% of heavy truck drivers were self-employed. And these are guys that typically can own their own truck, get and work kind of as a freelancer delivering goods around the country. So the two big ways that truck drivers really boost their income is owning their own business, owning their own truck, and overtime. Heavy truck drivers also have an advantage where they can actually sleep in the truck and really save on costs as well. So that covers compensation for light and heavy truck drivers. Next up, what is the job market like? How bad is the truck driver shortage right now? First thing to understand is the truck driver workforce is massive. The government recorded 1.8 million heavy truck drivers in 2020, and these are employed heavy truck drivers. This doesn't include the self-employed that own their own rig. Then they also recorded about 930,000 light truck drivers. So these are massive workforces, much larger than the number of employed bus drivers, flight attendants, and pilots. And the number of employed truck drivers has been rising over time. And this is due to the fact that about 70% of freight is transported by truck over, say, air or rail. In the year 2000, there was about 1.5 million heavy truck drivers. This rose to about 1.9 million in 2020. For light truck drivers, the number of employed has actually fallen a little bit. Into the year 2000, there was about 1 million light truck drivers. By 2020, there's about 923,000. And the government's outlook for truck drivers is pretty positive. They're anticipating about a 12% increase in light truck drivers and about 6% increase in heavy truck drivers. But this is assuming that automation doesn't occur. And one of the big companies on the horizon that recently announced they're working on a self-driving truck is Waymo. In fact, in June 2021, Waymo self-driving trucks will soon start moving freight across Texas. Waymo actually already has a self-driving taxi service in Arizona. So if they take that same technology and they start applying it to trucks, there could be some disruption on the horizon for truck drivers. But this particular technology is taking a very long time to build and develop, and it's questionable when you can actually take a trucker out of that front seat and just keep a machine there. For example, with pilots, you would think that, airlines would be trying to create kind of self-piloting software to take the pilots out of the cockpit, but they're not even interested in that. They want someone on the plane to take control if something bad happens. Something similar could happen in the truck industry. So we'll have to wait and see if Waymo, which already has level 4 software driving people around in Arizona, if they can apply that same technology to trucks. So we really don't know when or if self-driving trucks will be a thing. But we do know that there is a huge truck driver shortage going on right now. To look at the demand for truck drivers, I use 3 different platforms: Glassdoor, Indeed, and LinkedIn.com. And I look at the number of job postings across the United States. On Glassdoor.com, I found 67,048 job opportunities for truck drivers in the United States. On Indeed.com, there was a staggering 544,000 job opportunities for truck drivers in the United States. And on LinkedIn, there was about 138,000 job openings. So when you compare the number of job postings against the number of employed heavy and light truck drivers, you can see that there is a pretty big shortage going on right now, especially from these Indeed.com numbers. There's over 500,000 job postings for truck drivers, and that is a lot, especially compared to the workforce. So those are some pros and cons of becoming a truck driver in 2021. If you enjoy seeing different parts of America and you want to see the West Coast, the East Coast, you just want to be on the road all the time, this is the perfect occupation. This is also a great occupation if you love listening to podcasts. If you enjoyed this video, definitely also check out my commercial and or airline pilot video. There I go into some similar statistics with the aim of helping you choose a career. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.